college, I hitchhiked my way around the world over a year's time. And I have not found any place as pleasant as this to call home.
I think we have, for a long time, sort of held on to, the way things used to be, and I think now people are pretty convinced that we have to make some changes.
There's a lot of changes, but like when I started out, you couldn't go to the bank and get a loan for a boat. You got an old leaky boat, you worked and got a boat that leaked less. I never had a new boat till I was 50 years old. And that's one of the things that changed is in the 90s when it started getting good fishing, you could get out of high school and go to the bank and say, I need $500,000 for a boat and 800 traps, I'm going lobstering. And the bank would look at you and say, you sure you don't want more? We'll give you more if you want it.
You don't find high school students mowing lawns for $5. I mean, not when they can go out and haul traps or something for 4 or 5 times that.
I mean, there's some teenagers here fishing in high school and making more money than I am. I mean, it's like this. Tend to be pretty industrious here.
There's kids who still want to go into the fishing industry. There's a lot of students who it's like a generational thing. Their parents and grandparents and several generations have been in the fishing industries.
They've had wonderful, wonderful years of lobster, and the fishermen are doing really, really good. So, but if something happens to the lobsters, I don't know what will happen to the island.
There's been a continued documentation of the lobsters moving from southern waters, like around Long Island Sound and coast of Massachusetts, further up the coast as the waters warm up and they're looking for cooler waters.
I've seen the industry really grow from 50 million pounds to 115 million pounds. Last year it was about 90 million pounds, but still that's huge in the scheme of things. I said it's very interesting that somebody should do a study on, as the lobster industry became so much more profitable, Main Street became more diminished.
Main Street has changed. The stores are different. We used to have more grocery stores. Now there's only the one.
It's going to be hard because if you look at the housing prices on all the windows in the real estate places, the young people aren't going to be able to afford that. Most of us local people now have sold everything in town and moved out of town because you couldn't afford the taxes and the prices they're paying.
At one point when the fishing industry was down in the 40s, 50s, people went off to Massachusetts and Connecticut to work in the factories. They had to go for jobs for unskilled labor. And I really think that that's going to be a real problem if there isn't a community education to say, these are the things that you could do.
I mean, I think this place is a wonderful place to live, but it's not for everybody. People tend to really like it or really dislike it.
I'd say the community on the island is very supportive. The sense of closeness may change because as it is, there's a little bit of an us versus them.
I think tourism is secondary in a lot of people's minds, but we need tourism in order to flourish in terms of businesses here in town.
I don't like it. I like it to go back the way it used to be. Go downtown and all cars, out-of-state license plates. I mean, the people are good, and it's good because these people help the economy of the island. I mean, they help. They contribute a lot of money to different things, and they're good, that way. So that is a big help. That's a plus.
You have that constant tension between, what does tourism look like, and can that enhance this community without making people feel that they're being compromised.
I mean, for sure, when you're out here and the industries are farming and fishing, I mean, you're really intertwined with your environment in a way that, when you're in suburbia, you're not.
I mean, the weather's changed, and part of that weather pattern, I think, is kind of cyclical, but I mean, I'm certainly convinced that we're screwing it up.
So I think that basically people are pretty resigned to the fact that, things have got to change. I mean, we've seen some king tides, we've seen a lot of phenomenon that is unusual, and that I think people are convinced that we do need to do something.
There's been experiments on Hurricane Island growing kelp and scallops, and I think that's one shift that may be made, change from lobstering and fishing, more aquaculture based.
We did participate in an experiment with Vinalhaven kelp this year. We allowed them to dry kelp in one of our greenhouses in the beginning of April before we needed it. So we were happy to partner with initiatives like that, which are trying to think about other industries for people to go in if the fishing industry slows down.
And fishermen, what they've been seeing is, like even this summer, there's a report of a blue crab that was caught here, and these are Chesapeake Bay blue crabs, much warmer water species that are now being caught in the northern waters.
It's scary to be able to see there's no more mussels on our beach. They're gone. That's a big impact. I think about more the changes in terms of farming and making the farm sustainable. And what will we have to do to make sure that we can keep growing food here for people as it gets hotter?
As an island, it is definitely different than people who are living on the coast, but we have nowhere else to go. We're kind of losing land as the sea level rises.
I read an article the other day that said if this keeps going, the water level keeps rising, there won't be any islands in the Pacific. Because, I don't know, it won't affect me, but I read a lot about it.
Then most of the people that are buying waterfront property are Republicans, and they don't believe in, climate change and the sea level rise, and we got a good laugh out of that.
I mean, you still have some naysayers, you always do in any community, but I think the majority of people are very supportive of the efforts.
Don't think there's a whole lot of denial that something is happening, and that it's probably due to climate change of warming temperatures.
And it's definitely a scary reality. Vinalhaven's planning for it.
You've seen probably surveyors around trying to figure out how are we going to reconstruct our roads, how are we going to build our sidewalks, how is our power source and water source going through Main Street going to change as a result of sea level rise and climate change. And I think the school is doing a great job of really bringing those topics to the forefront for students. And I think you're seeing more students getting involved and young people getting involved in trying to do some town planning and also, doing some predictions as to, what's Vinalhaven going to look like in 50 years or 100 years.
One of my favorite stories is there was this fisherman named Rodney Dyer. There was another fisherman in the harbor that he didn't speak to. I don't know the whole story. I don't know if it was something that their fathers had an issue with or their grandfathers had an issue, but the other fisherman, who happened to have several kids, lost the engine in his boat in July. And Rodney went to him and gave him $5,000 cash and said, get an engine for your boat because you need to take care of your family and pay me back when you can. I mean, to do that to someone you don't talk to is pretty amazing.
Everyone knows everyone. I mean, and a lot of times you're going to see riding, people will wave. Even if they don't know who you are, they'll still wave. The community, everyone comes together, in times of need, which is what, we do.
Vinalhaven is such a caring community that, anybody, people say, anything you need, just let me know.
I am optimistic that we have enough good people around that will persevere. When I came to Vinalhaven, I expected it to be a bit conservative, but it's actually pretty open-minded.
I just think it would be nice if the community was even more accepting of others than it is.
When I first came to the island, several people that were prominent here said, enjoy what we have and don't try to change it. Some people come and they want to make it like the place they came from. Some of those people don't last long here. They have a hard time coming in and accepting some of the old ways and how the island operates. I'm hopeful that Vinalhaven won't lose what it has.